For the first 11 chapters, Genesis is a polytheism. Not until chapter 12 does it solidify as a monotheism. I've looked at that and examined it and want to show you some things in this video and just talk through some stuff. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. I'm doing independent research, but what I'm using is the Bible and the computer. The computer is allowing me to reveal some things, some patterns in the background that we don't see because we don't know the material well enough. Name repeats exactly a certain amount of times, things like that are very consistent throughout the material. This is something that we don't have access to because 6,000 years ago, they would have been living through these stories and had them memorized and had them in their heads all day long going through them. I'm going to submit that they're highly complicated and that we're not tapping them at all. Okay, but in this video, what I want to do is show more how there was a morphing, apparently from Babylonian material, from there's two works, the creation myth, the Enuma Elish, and then the Atrahasis, which is the flood story. And as I look through Genesis, what I see is the first part of Genesis is like the Enuma Elish, and then there's the flood story there. And I believe that was it at one time. It ended right there, that's all the bigger that story was. However, if we look carefully, we're going to notice a couple of things, like there are two creation stories that don't sound the same. They're not written in the same style, and they're not accomplishing the same things. And if we get down to where I'm going to contend there's a calling of Noah. Noah is where the inner journey begins. The world that needs to be destroyed is our personal experience. That's what needs to be destroyed there. And that there, if you read there, you'll see that there's actually two times Noah was called. Twice he was told what to bring in the boat. People always say 2 by 2. No, there's another one. That would have matched the second creation story. The one with the 5 rivers and where Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, naked, unashamed in the end. But the 7-day creation story, there's another line completely separate telling Noah to bring 7 pairs of clean things. And I edited this in. I was kind of unclear. The 7-day creation and then the 7 pairs of things. There's something happening in a numbering grid that's starting on day 7, where day 7 is said 3 times, and a 3-7 grid begins. The 7 is critical right there. So him being told 7 things is very imperative to carrying on whatever this 7 is being built from one part of the story to the next. So you can see that twice he's told what to bring in the boat, and both times the instructions are different. Yet the two creation stories would align with that. So there's pieces and parts in there that I look at and say that was more closely related to Babylonian, but then they found reason to make it grow bigger, and they did. And from 12 on, from the calling of Abram and Sarai on, begins the Jewish religion. And right there is where it solidifies as a monotheism. Something else that comes up in the computer as I start looking through these, if I wouldn't have known this except for the computer. As you're looking through words like how many times does naked appear? And naked appears 4 times exactly, and it's right there in the Garden of Eden story. And all throughout Genesis, that's the only place it shows up, naked. However, 5 times nakedness is repeated when Noah, after the flood, and he needs to be covered up again. Nakedness is said. So there's blocks of terms that are being used that are very specific. They only appear in clumps in one place and nowhere else. It's just like, it's very weird. Nakedness appears nowhere, but in this little piece of story with Noah right here. Naked only appears in this little piece of story of Adam and Eve here. So when you start looking, you'll find things like that. It's chunky. There's stuff added in. There's different stories that are stitched together. And if you don't know them well enough, you don't see that. And you understand what we're doing here is not an academic sit down and listen, and here's what I have to tell you, that this is investigative stuff, looking through, analyzing it, and determining what it is together. There's no preaching here. This is figuring out what the hell is there. What are these patterns? It's full of them. Do you see them? I do. You can see the evolution of it if we look at it. I'm going to pull it up here. Let's take a look at the 5 occurrences in Genesis chapters 1 through 11, where it clearly shows it's referencing plural gods. Okay, and I wrote this up here at the top. I was just explaining this. Genesis 1 through 11 is not a monotheism. It seems to be a blend of two different stories, including two creation stories at the beginning of the human life template, as well as two callings of Noah at the beginning of the called path template, also known as a monomyth. This was to convert the creation and flood story up to chapter 11 into a much larger book of Genesis. The first section more closely resembles the Babylonian material from the Enuma Elish, the creation story, and the Atrahasis, the Babylonian flood story. From chapter 11 on, an enhanced numbering system is in use as well as a full-on, repeat, sequence life cycle story. We become Abram, and we're going to cycle through. Okay, here's where it occurs. Chapter 1, verse 26, and God said, "Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion." It goes on. In 3:22, and the Lord God said, "Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil." 6:2, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all that they chose. Where do the sons of God come from? Coming down and creating, well, here we go on to the number 4, same chapter. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. So something came in and had sex with the daughters of men and bare children to them that became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. They're kind of hinting that there's these giants there. Okay, then when we get down into the Babel story, 11, that's the last part right there. Let us go down there and confound their language, that they may not understand as one another's speech. So in all those 5 instances right there, God is referenced as plural in a very sloppy way. It does not do that anywhere else. It doesn't keep doing that in Genesis, that's for sure. It does not say us. Okay, it takes on a different style and a different tone. But let's talk about how a monotheism or a polytheism would work. And if you look closely, you will see that there is really no monotheism. Even in Islam, where they say there is only one God, there's only Allah, there's still angels and jinns. There's still some sort of malevolent, some other kind of creatures out there, although they're given much lower status. But there's not just one creature out there. There's other creatures out there that have been made by God to do good and bad or whatever. Probably the easiest way to do this is to just go talk about it a little bit. I've got the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish up here. And for those who have been following my work that are kind of familiar with my constant use of jumping over to the Tao Te Ching with Lao Tzu, I've got a point here in the template. There were no names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. We put ourselves into this story. This is us. This is our mind. We have not named anything, and nothing was going to happen as a result of it. If we were to look at the Tao Te Ching, a favorite one, it would say naming is the origin of all particular things. This says no names were spoken yet. Then it has another line that says, caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Manifestations would be the same as fates. It would be what you have as the effect of causes. Whatever you've named is going to continue to emerge later. There's a cause and effect going on here based on a mental process. So this right here is indicating we're not there yet. This is just bringing everything into being, but we are ready. We're empty, ready to go. But the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. The first were Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. This would be like Adam and Eve. This is the first occurrence of Lamu and Lahamu is male and female version of a name. Like if you called me Daniel and Danielle, Lamu and Lahamu is like that. But once they had fully grown and became mature of form, they were born Anchar and Kishar. So now this is iterations of us. We've gone from an early stage and are now getting to an older stage. And these are iterations of us. And then we begin the divide. So many days pass by and many years were counted. We're going to see in Genesis material, this is held in lineages. Time goes by, people being born, living this many years. It's going to get big, but that's what this is right here. Time goes by. The first son, Anu, being as great as his forebears. This is us as we're becoming adults and moving through life. From Anu came Nudimmud, who is also his spitting image. Nudimmud proved to be even greater than his forebears, profoundly wise and full of insight. Let's see. I'm going to jump down here. Okay. That generation of gods would gather together for wild revels. So they proved bothersome for Tiamat. That's the inner self. That's the self that contains all. Their hullabaloo echoed. This is in our mind. All this commotion proved unsettling to Tiamat's inner being. Why are they gods? We'll get there. And she was bothered by all of their activity with Andaruna. Andaruna is the dwelling place of the gods. This is your mind. We're bothered by all of the commotion within our mind. There was nothing Apsu could do to mitigate their carousing. The higher, the conscious, whatever is in charge, we're not shutting it down. Apsu is the creator who's going to disappear. We'll see that in Genesis. God disappears until it's time to wipe things out. Apsu's going to do the same thing here. And no matter how bothersome their conduct became to her, regardless of how rowdy things were, she just put up with it. This is us early in life where we have turmoil. We've got issues. We've got things that we're just living through, and we're not dealing with it. It goes along and, okay, so that's what's happening. And if we were to then make comparisons over with Genesis, what we would find out is that is what those giants are. The things, they don't elaborate on it big. They do, when we split off to Enoch, they elaborate on that very much. But right here, they just very soft sell that bad element right there. Sons of God came down instead of them being bad. But what are these powerful things? Why are they powerful? Why are they gods? When there's multiple gods up there, it's because at various times there's one god that's in charge of all the other gods. That's the conscious self, the big Zeus, whoever, and has lesser gods. What this means is that, and these gods they do good things and bad things. These are our qualities that at various times when they come out, even the higher God is not in charge. You're sitting there and you got a higher self. Everything is okay. You get triggered. You act out. Whatever this lesser thing is takes on God's status, and it's so powerful, it acts out anyway. It's screaming, yelling, whatever. It's something that is unresolved. It's these issues that are there. So they're just giving it a term that it's powerful. Okay, so you get into a monotheism, and we can't have a bunch of gods. What do we do? Let's slip some sons of gods in there or something like that. We're still putting the same element in there. So it's still doing the same thing. It just sounds a little bit different. What else do we have there? Yeah, the whole disappearance of Apsu. If we were to, let's look at this real quickly. This is the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish. Marduk is the called hero. I'm going to show you a numbering system in place. Marduk appears 41 times in the Enuma Elish. If we go to Genesis, Noah is the called hero. 41 times. We're going to find a lot of alignments like this, a lot of numbering alignments in the background. This is all things that to me just tell me this is all part of a bigger system. This numbering system is maintained in Genesis. It's built up bigger, actually. But it was being shared. That Babylonian part, okay, so what happens in this story is that in the end, after Marduk destroys everything, that represents destroying the earlier self. We're going to rebuild, and we're going to rebuild Babylon. This represents the idea that you've torn down your early self, but you can't just tear yourself down and leave yourself empty. Now you have to do something else. You came from a bad place, you got to go to a good place. Do something positive, work and do things that are good for people, that are beneficial, that are good for you. You get caught up in a completely different kind of energy flow that way. So we're going to go build this tower. We're going to build Babylon. We're going to work together. We're going to become one, and we're going to become unified from inside of us. What happens when we get to Genesis? Oh, God sees that everybody is unified and working and raising a tower. Well, we can't have that. We're going to go down there and destroy it and spread them apart and make them all have different languages. That's where that picks up. The Babel story is from the Enuma Elish. That's the Tower of Babel. That's Babylon. You're building a new city. You're building a new self. It sounds like, it's happening in real life as well. But as within, so without. It's built on a template. If you follow that, and it represents you. That's what's happening there. Flooding out, you're destroying. Naked in the end, you're uncovered from that pain. We were naked in the garden before we sinned. Then we got covered after sin. He's, after the flood, uncovered, naked. It was a good thing, actually. Okay, so right there is where I just wanted to point that out. I want to show those similarities and show how that first chapters, the 11 chapters, really look like derivative. It was very being shared. The Jews and the Babylonians are coexisting at some point in time, but they're not going to be sharing the same religions. And the Jews do modify theirs, but you can see that that's what it is. It's a modified religion from other sources, but it's maintaining a pattern. They're not trying to fool anybody. The pattern is there. Someone is keeping strict adherence to a template when they create these stories. You can believe the stories, or you can go, man, that's something, I don't believe it at all. Or you can go, God, there's something else in there that nobody's seeing. Okay. That's what we're doing here. There's something else inside there. All right, for those that follow my work, you know what this is. Everybody else, I have to cover this a little bit if you haven't seen the video before. I have more extensive workup on this. But for now, what I'm going to be looking at here is this group of numbers, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way that you see right there. And then first sin, 8, 11, 13, 21. These numbers are derived in a process of going through analog farms in Genesis. There's a significant analysis of what's going on. Day 3 and day 7, that's the first two numbers. That's it right there. Eden, 3, 7. This represents ourselves in our childhood state where we are pure and we have not judged life yet. All of these represent that. And words that are repeated throughout Genesis, this is not a complete list at all, just a small list. Wine, nakedness, naked, uncovered. You see how those would be really in the spiritual world. That's what you want. You don't want to have a bunch of fear and shame and stuff trapped inside of you. You want to be free of it. Covenant, righteousness, righteous. Lamech, Zillah, tenth, tent, cattle, heaven, Mamre, mighty. We're going to find a whole lot more than that. They're maintaining it very tight. If you came down to first sin, you're going to find like Sodom is repeated 21 times. Adah, 8 times. Creature and Gerar, I don't remember which one. Sin itself, as it's used as sin or sinner, is repeated exactly 8 times in Genesis. Now, so the numbers, the way that they're gathered, you start with the 3 and the 7, and the 3 and the 7 through a pattern, you're going out and gathering other numbers. They're not compound, like the 940 and, whatever, years like that. You don't treat those as 940 years. You treat it as a 900 and as a 40. The 40 is an important number. That's what you take. The 900, you go, I don't know what that is for. But if you look, you will find out that 900 is repeated exactly 7 times. 800 exactly 7 times. It gets more complex. I'm going to be brief here, but those are serving as surrogates as a 7, 3, by repeating that many times that are just, you look at them and go, that can't be. They're code. Count how many times they happen. Bingo, there you go. They're collecting up other numbers. So all those other numbers that are appearing there. And in the Sodom farm, how many times, you could take that whole story out and it wouldn't matter. It doesn't change anything. It's just a weird exchange that's plugged in there. Would you destroy it for the sake of 50? No, I would not 50. It reads actually, I always say it's like a Dr. Seuss sounding thing in my head. But it's got numbers repeating in there, the same numbers, the same amount of times. We keep grabbing those numbers. Those 22 numbers repeat over 6,000 times in the Bible. We're seeing number repeats. But at 22, with all the verbiage in between, it's hard to see them. And many times the number repeats are held in the words. The name Sarai is repeated exactly 17 times, and it's one of our numbers. Would you know that? Noah repeated exactly 41. That's one of our numbers. Would you know that? Nope. It takes a lot of analysis to do this. And really, it takes time because we don't have it where they designed it to be. And it's going to roll along in a numbering pattern like this. I don't have it quite dialed in all the way. But if 7 was a good thing, first sin is 8. So first sin right there, we take a step into it. And if what else do we have? If 12 is a good thing, then one step up is 13. If 12 is also from that area, we've also got like a 10 or the 21 right there. If 20 is a good number that's collected, one step up, and it's in the green, then the next step up from it is 21. So it's sequencing like that. That's how, if you look through and you just tell the computer how many times does this noun or verb appear in Genesis, it'll put it on that chart. And it explains a lot of things, like it's going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights for the flood. That's an inner process. That's the time to purity. If the same thing happens when we cross the threshold of the Red Sea and go into the desert for 40 years, there's our 40. The number is 40. The years, days, all that is not important. What's important is the 40. 40 is coming from that list. It's to the time of purity. Jesus, after he gets baptized, he does a water crossing, 40 days in the wilderness. The 40 is there. This is the turning inward and to the time it takes for purity. But the numbering system is going to support that. But you have to kind of figure it out through mental experimentation. There's some things that go on that there's repeating going on. And at some point you realize it's numbering in the code. Like in that Sodom farm, would you destroy it for the sake of 50 righteous? No, not for 50 righteous. For 50 righteous, I won't destroy it. No, not if there's 50 righteous there. And you go, boy, this just sounds convoluted. Righteous is said exactly 7 times. 50 is said 4 times. 40 right there is said 3 times. 3 and so the 3, the cross-referencing, all of that is going on there. But in the flood story, you're going to see it more deliberate. In 7 days, I will make it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And then the next line to confirm it. And in 7 days, it did rain for 40 days and 40 nights. So the 7 is pointing to the 40 multiple times. You just go, grab the 40 and see what happens. And sure enough, yeah, that's how they're encoding the story. It's through memorizing and counting. Memorizing and counting. We can do the counting. We don't have it memorized. All right, getting back to the Enuma Elish, what I'm going to just bring you through here is we're going to get down to a point where bad things are happening. And this is where it's time for the inner battle to take place. And we're going to struggle. And what happens is that the inner being, all of these things are building up. I'll try to make this brief. But Lady Huber is given the role of somebody who is like the bad element here. Lady Huber, who made it all, produced an unfailing weapon. She brought big snakes with piercing teeth and vicious fangs. Their bodies she had fused with poison rather than blood. And she caused these raging demons to emit deadly beams and to wear mantles of brilliance so that they were like gods. And it goes on through there, and if we look, we're going to see that Lady Huber is repeated exactly 8 times. Lady Huber is the evil element that you need to go in and battle, but it's going to fight back with all kinds of nastiness. It's going to be difficult to turn inward and deal with these things. That is the things that we have named along the way, the issues that we have, the unresolved issues. So the numbering is that deep. We don't see that. They had them memorized by necessity. That they didn't read, didn't write. There was few that did, the educated ones that made the stories. But the average person did not read and write. They had these memorized. And they would then have access to these numbers if they had them deeply memorized. You couldn't just memorize the story. You'd have to take that memorized story then and go off on your own and start working it through and memorize how many times was Noah's name said, how many times is Sarai's name said, all of that. Nakedness, east, north, west, south, wind, fire, all of it. All of those are on a numbering template that's really bizarre. Okay, what I want to do is show you now how this iteration happens. We can see how this is happening in the Bible. And by iterations, I mean, how do we become each person along the path? These are iterations of us at stages of our lifetime. We have to look at them closely. Each person moving from person to person, getting renamed or having new offspring, represents the next iteration of us on a path. It's going to be a big thing to play out in the head. What I'm going to do is bring up, let's see here. Oops, let's switch back over. I'll get on it. And what I'm going to look for here is, where am I? 13. I want to get to 12. Chapter 12. There we go. Okay, chapter 12 is where it suddenly changes. It is not like 1 through 11 anymore. It reads different, like a third, fourth author is in here, somebody stitching it together, 2 other stories that were from different authors, and different two different creations, two different floods. And what we get down here is something that just suddenly straightens way the heck up. It just really tightens. And Abram is the calling. And what happens here, this is us in the beginning of life. The Lord said to Abram, get out of your country and from your kindred and from your father's house into a land that I will show you. Now that replicates what in creation? It's going to be the end of the second creation story. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Okay, what this is really meaning right here is, it is time for you to leave your childhood happy place and go experience life. Leave it behind, and come on, I'm going to give you everything that you're going to experience here. This is your life right here. You are this person, and everything that's happening is going to be analogous. Okay, iterations. I'm going to talk about something here. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers without. Okay, what is Canaan? Ham, the father of Canaan. This is Canaan in the story. Canaan is an analog for the promised land. We know what that is. But it's also known as the pure flow in the Tao, nirvana, kingdom of heaven within, inner peace, in full control of one's mind and thoughts. Mental turmoil and inner conflict are resolved, and life flows perfectly well. Like Jason needs to get his kingdom back from his evil uncle. This represents us needing to defeat our early self. Jason is us now. King Pelias is our old self. Kingdom and Canaan are the same thing here. They represent the same thing. We're going to go, as we go through the material, we're going to find we're going to have to destroy evil cities, defeat enemies, get vineyards back from evil renters, Arjuna getting his land back in the Bhagavad Gita, and on and on. Getting to the Holy Land, it's all a mental place. It's a common motif. This is our early life, unaware self, and how our minds, where we live in perception, or our mind's eye. Jesus talks about that eye too. Now needs to be torn down, cleared out, and rebuilt. So Canaan is the father of Canaan. So Ham then is the father of our eventual purity. Now some strange things happen. There's some fun things going on here. So Abram appears as a brother of Nahor and Haran, the sons of Terah, the dad. We go through some iterations down here, but in the end what we get to is the Terah dad dies inside of Haran. So there's a transition from Haran being a son to Haran being a land. If we were to look up Ham, let's go to, make sure I switch over here. I'm going to go to the King James Version. All right, Ham. All right, the last time Ham appears is in chapter 14, verse 5. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims, and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emims and Sheva in Kerethaim. Yeah, I can't pronounce those correctly. But right there, these people were defeated in the Zurims in Ham. They were. It's another example of where it starts out as a person and ends up as a land. That happens throughout here. More clues that they're iterations of us. This is all playing out as a part of us. Yeah, it's a tough thing. We don't do it. We don't do it. You got to have a very functional, highly functional imagination. Do you see that transition? You're going to find that throughout here. Those are clues telling us something. We're transitioning from a person, we're being born, and then we become a land. We become our own selves. I am Dan, and I live in the land of Dan. I live in my own imagination, my perceptions, my beliefs, my head. And old iterations of me need to die off in me. Things that I once was, I can't be anymore. That's dying off inside yourself. But you know what? The analogs make it sound so mystical and so like, whoa, that's some weird stuff. And really all it is saying, you know what? I'm not that anymore. Yeah, I've learned. I've learned better. I've done better. All right, where was I? Let's see now. Let's see. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Okay, this is just, it's us. And I will bless them that bless you and curse those that curse you. And in you all of the families of the earth shall be blessed. This is a loaded one. It's number 3 here, but I'm going to bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. This means everything comes from the same location. Good and bad, no matter what is going to happen in life. Because in you all of the families of the earth shall be blessed. The families are what? The families are going to be your life experiences, how you grow, how you develop. In you, all of them will be blessed. And does that mean blessed good or does that mean blessed bad? I'll bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. Whatever your life is going to be like is going to be a product of that. But there's going to be the higher awareness up here that has the power for all of that. We don't know running along from life, why do things go a certain way? We got a power source that we're operating from all the time that is this right here. We don't know it. And we're using it in a way that if life is not good, that's us. That's us. That's how we're blessing the families of the earth. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. 70 and 5 are both on our list of good things. It's time to go. It's a pure time. Lot is going to be the divided self. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had. Sarai's pure as well. Her name is repeated 17 times. So Abram, 75, Sarai, 17 times. If we knew that, it's a layer deeper. And everything that they have. This is us starting off in life ready to go. We're come loaded with 2 personalities. We can go either direction, a later iteration. Think Cain and Abel at this point, except that it is so small and so old. But that division happens right there. That's what we have here, the division going on. One doesn't kill off the other in this case, but they're variations of how we divide, and the first self is not the one that we want to end with. And we passed through the place into the land of Shechem, into the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. It's hard for us to get into these stories because we're so far removed from them. The Canaanite was kind of a more broad, it was like there was a bunch of people living there. It was kind of the land of Canaan. But he passed through there, so he didn't go to Canaan. Abram passed through. In fact, Canaan, or in a land of famine, is the same analogous location as being in the Garden of Eden prior to have consumed of anything. Where, those are the same locations. The story's held in different ways, but it represents us, and it represents the Garden of Eden as a blissful place to live in our mind, and we had not yet consumed of life. And right here, same thing. We are in Canaan, or the land where we're put that is to be ours, but there's nothing there to eat. Same place. Wild stories. Shechem in the plain of Moreh. And the Lord appeared to Abram and said, unto your seed I will give this land. And there he built an offer in the Lord who appeared to him. Okay, so what this is telling us right here, the seed that I will give this land, this means this place that you're going to be mentally living from, your perception in life, that all of your experiences and your judgments are going to be here. All of it is going to be there. This is all of us. This is all, what we are going to become, all of our memories and our judgments. Okay, the implication here is that the higher awareness is saying you are emerging from me in this space up here. I'm giving to you to manage it in any way you can. It's going to be yours. And whatever you develop as far as your memories and your life experiences, those are the offspring. And you know what? They're going to number more than the stars in the sky and the sand on the beach. And there he built an altar to the Lord who appeared to him. Okay, so this is letting us know we need to make a mental connection with the higher awareness right here. And it's in verse 7, which is on that grid. There's bigger things going on here. You notice that 12 is one of our numbers, and this begins on chapter 12. 17 is one of our numbers, and I'll tell you right off the bat when the calling happens. That's when Abram gets converted to Abraham. 17. So there's micro and macro things going on in the numbering that we are unaware of. These are steps. Each chapter is actually a step in life. If we know that, we can probably understand them better. I can't think of a visual analog to describe what this pattern thing is going. It's kind of like at some point, like I didn't see them before, but now I see a way to skip across the pond on lily pads that if you don't look at them just right, you don't see they're there. There's patterns on here that when you learn a lot of it and you see a lot of it, you begin to see the patterns, but you see the consistency in the patterns. And they emerge as something then that you realize that's what's really there. And then you leave Genesis and go anywhere to any book in the Bible, and this numbering pattern is right there. It's all things Abraham. Okay, so Abram, what's happened here? He went to a mountain east of Bethel and pitched a tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east, and there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. So we're not where we should be. We're not in Canaan. We're not living in the right place, and we're building an altar to the Lord. I don't know what that means, good or bad. We get both from there. And Abram journeyed on, going towards the south. So we're leaving. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Okay, so this makes better sense to be something you have to interpret than something that you would take literally. If God just literally created everything and is doing all of this, and then they put you someplace where there's not even any food, so you have to leave. So there's something not quite right here. God is the higher awareness, and and a famine is a good place. Famine means we are empty, devoid of. We have not yet learned. This is spiritual famine. Eventually, we're going to be taught to fast as to the world, which means there's not a famine, but now you must turn away. Right here, we don't know yet. We haven't experienced life. And it came to pass when he was coming to enter Egypt that he said to Sarai his wife, Behold, I know that you're a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it came to pass when the Egyptians see you, they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, and they will save you alive. And so all of that happens. The Egyptians did see that she was fair. Pharaoh married her, and she was taken into his house, and Abram was treated well. He was given sheep and oxen and he-asses and men-servants and maidservants and asses and camels because of her sake. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh with his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. You notice the Lord didn't come. The Lord disappeared up here. The Lord is not going to reappear for a while. Even though there's exchanges going back and forth, there's something different in those exchanges. It's not the Lord appearing. It's word came from, or angel, or dream, or vision, or something. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh. So somehow Pharaoh is teaching by plagues. What this represents then is that we have begun to experience life. Egypt represents the life we're experiencing, and Pharaoh represents life that at some point is actually the one that tells us to leave. So we need to leave the past, but we're leaving with things that we accumulated along the way. Our inner being became corrupted, and we gathered things up, and we're moving along in life, and we're having repeated cycles of pain. That's what that great plagues are, the cycles of pain. And Pharaoh tells them to get lost. That's leaving the past behind. You would notice the similarity in the first template, in the first 11 chapters, where right after the sin happens, where they got covered up, and the cyclical pain came in when God admonished the inner self, the female Eve, and said that you will now have continual pain in childbirth. And Adam, you will continue to, live off the land and never reap the full benefits of it. You're not going to have a full quality life as a result of now being disconnected from the higher awareness. You're going to go off and live in a different way. These are the same things. This is a repeating part of that template, if you can see it. It's cycling something already. That's what the Babel story is, leaving the past behind. We need to move on. There's always some sort of a story element that means leaving the past behind. All right, and that was the Jewish version of leaving the Babylonian teaching behind. Yet the masters are still sharing the code at the deep level. Only at the outer level are things changing. Anyway, I won't get into all that. Things keep going along here, but down here at 17 is indeed where The Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be perfect. What's happened all the way up to this point is the normal life experience that we would have gone through if we had gone through like up to the flood in the first part of the story, and it's now time for Noah to be called. This is a very elaborate version of a calling of Noah. It's going to get huge. They did not stay small and simple. They tightened up and got really big. Anyway, so he's turning him from Abram to Abraham. And what is Abram and what is Ham? Ham was the father of Canaan. Now we have gone to a new iteration. We were Ham at one point, the father of Canaan, went through other iterations, became Abram, and started living our life. And down here, we're called. It is now time for you to... Ultimately, this is the calling. This is the point in time in the person. If you are the called person, this is the point in time where you understand what to do and you grab the material and you turn inward. This is that point right here when you go, it's my turn to take this adventure. It's for anybody to take, and if not, it's an adventure to hang on to, or a, it could be in a religious genre or something like that. But this template, this core template, is exactly what is everywhere. I want to talk about one other thing in Genesis. I was looking at it closer and I made a mistake about when the Lord disappeared. I said he disappeared earlier. He actually comes back. Where was it here? Okay, here we have it, 14. And the Lord said to Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up your eyes now and look from the place where you are northward and southward and eastward and westward. For the land that you see I will give to your seed forever. So actually, there's a reappearance down here. But it's after a cleansing. And it also very specifically says after that Lot was separated from him. That's where we are now no longer living from a higher self, but are now just living through our life judgments. We've shifted from a higher, more carefree self to a more living through a massive judgments self through life. The more time goes on, the more judgments you make. Stars in the sky, sand on the beach. And it's now, guess what? Now that you've been cleansed, you still have, everything still belongs to you. It's still your land forever. That is where he disappears. When we get down here, what we see is something different. The word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. And Abraham said, Lord God, what will you give me seeing? And the word of the Lord came to him. And he believed in the word. And he said, Lord, well, shall I go? So he's not really there in person. He's hearing this across the distance. And the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying to him, well, it sounds like he's talking to him there. Whew. Lord, judge. Angel of the Lord, angel of the Lord, angel of the Lord, angel of the name of the Lord. Well, okay, so this is what I think, because you look at that and go, what does that mean in the psyche? If you have to look at that and make it mentally interactive, what is all of that? Sometimes the Lord is there and sometimes it's not. And I think we have to look at our own life if you're a seeker and understand something. There's going to be a point in time where you realize you're looking back and you had inner dialogues going on where you weren't aware of the fact that it was the higher awareness. You knew what to do. I know what the best thing is, but I didn't do it. That there's things that are happening sometimes, that we have these inner dialogues where we are connecting with the higher self, but unaware of that. We don't really engage with it. We're not ready to turn inward yet. We haven't had enough. We haven't hit rock bottom. Something, somehow, some way. We are nevertheless throughout life always interacting with the higher awareness. It always comes in and goes, but we have no clue what it is. We just think it's an inner dialogue. So I think that's what this is representing right here, is that same thing, that you're kind of getting, sometimes there's kind of a faint connection sometimes to that there. The story, of course, has to make progress. It's not going to go along a normal life as long as the story is. It's certainly not 30 or 40 years in duration, 50, 60, 70 years in duration. They're much faster than that. We still act it out slower in life. Certainly for me. The story reads in cycles a lot faster than life itself does. You have to go through the processes. Anyway, okay, I don't know what else to do on this one. I think I should end it because it gets so long. You have to dig into it. You have to look at it. But I wanted to show that there. I think that, I look at that and I see that pretty solid right now. I can see that very well. You have to look at it and study it for a while. And again, you might see a block of words repeat someplace, and you check for how many times it's there, and it repeats exactly the right amount of times, 5 or 10 or 7 or something like that, 3 times, and it's right there only. Nowhere else in all of Genesis. It's almost like little blocks are being made to put in there that are just little verbal Lego pieces that in the end create the whole story. It's very bizarre, but you can't see it if you don't have it memorized deep, or you don't look at it in the computer and think about it. I'm sure a kid back 6,000 years ago, they'd be laughing at me. They'd call me a dummy. Absolutely. I have no doubt. Here's another example. It's still using the same technique. This is thousands of years later. This is the book of Luke. But if I look in there, I just want to, for curiosity, how many times does bottle appear? And it's only 4 times, and it's only right here in the entire book. And, things like that are just kind of common. Sometimes words are scattered all over the place. They're not always tight like that. But sometimes they're just, little little groups of numbers. Again, the naked, it's actually 3 times naked is said in the creation, and then 3 times nakedness with Noah. Different version, different chapter, and then nakedness is said 2 more times. But it's all like nakedness is still exactly 5 times, and naked is exactly 3. So they keep them separated. 8 would not be good. 8 would not be good. But 5 and 3 are both good. So there's stuff wrapped up in the coding here that's letting us know to not combine things, to leave. It's kind of hard to think through, but you have to realize everything that we need to understand it is right inside of the code. Finding it starts in the patterns, but you got to see the patterns first. If you don't see the patterns, there's nothing to chase. And I don't mean the number patterns. There's a number of layers in here. You don't have to find the numbering patterns to know what to do with the material. If you take the numbers completely away and just read the story, but still play it out in your mind, in your psyche, that's what they were doing. They did not have numbers in there. The numbers have been added in later to show us what is in the story because we don't have it memorized. Those were actually put in for a number of reasons to help study, but at the same time, if you look at them, you see that the story was occurring on a stepped sequence already. And what they did is numbered it right on that step sequence to make sure you see that step sequence. So you don't have to understand that right there, though. I think it's very helpful to understand it. If you're reading chapter 7, verse 7 or something like that, it should be a good thing. A 3 should be a good thing. All of that, there's a point where you start seeing different things in there. Chapter 7 is going to be a redemption of some sort. Chapter 8 is going to be a failure, a moving on, a collapse of something. You're going to start seeing a bigger sequence going on if you follow the numbers. If you don't follow the numbers, again, though, and you know that it's you, and you just know that, I'm here on a healing path, and I'm Abram, and I'm Sarai, and now I've got corrupted, and now Sodom is there, and Sodom needs to be destroyed, and I'm not giving up real daughters. I'm offering up something else that doesn't end up going that way. The daughters having sex with the father is an internal lineage to continue offspring. In real life, that's some horrific stuff right there. Did they live like cavemen like that? I don't think so. And if you're drunk like that, no, I'm going to say no. He wasn't functional. Not when you're drunk like that. The story elements that we're looking for right here at this point in time in the sequences is that we're struggling to leave. We've got this conflict going on. This needs to be destroyed, but something is getting in the way. There's an interference of some sort. We make it or we don't. There's always this struggle to leave. There's plagues. There's trying to, Pharaoh says you can go and then says, change my mind. You can go, change my mind. You can go. Yeah, all that's going on. All of these are representing our own life struggles to leave that past behind, to leave that life, to leave that situation, to leave that habit, to leave whatever it is, that we don't just turn and go, oh, I mean, that can happen sometimes. But typically in the way the stuff is, when it gets deep and it gets hard, there's a struggle. And things like this are going to somehow be a way that sounds very contorted to us. It's super old. We don't live in their mindset. But we have to understand and step back from it and know that this is not a physical thing right here. This is a story created to hold something, even if it's got, kind of, Sodom elements, huh? But yeah, that's it on this video. But I wanted to talk about that, the variations, the being able to see more clearly the link between the Babylonian material and the early Jewish material. Not the entire book of Genesis, but only chapter 1 through 11. That's critical to understand. And that Babel story, that sounds pretty bizarre. That sounds like it was being shared. I mean, we're splitting away from the Babylonians. They're building ziggurats. We'll call it a Tower of Babel and split everybody off. All of those are happening right there in the culture. That's when the stories are being made. And the reasons why they're developing religions for their own populations. As the population's growing, we see the influx of pyramids, ziggurats, temples, all manner of construction, and religions appear at the same time, which tells us what? That suddenly society boomed. Suddenly there's masses of people, and they're just developing society. They're moving from a hunter-forager lifestyle into something that's organized, and this is going to be a part of that. It's an inspirational part of that. At the same time, it is meant to always contain that inner pathway, which is there all the way as far back as I can find it. It's stuff that we can read. I don't think the stuff from like Göbekli Tepe and things like that, it seems like something else was going on. There's nothing readable there. It's pictures, symbols. Yeah, that's kind of lost. As long as it's something I can read, or you can see cycles in it. Okay. All right. Well, hope the video was interesting. Any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. See you in the next video.